And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the final speaker of the first day of WDMS 2021. Here to talk to us about the future of power and mining, Part 2, we're honored to have the CEO of Marathon Digital Holdings, Mr. Fred Thiel.
Okay, I guess I am the last person between you and the first cocktail of the evening. So, firstly, I'd just like to start by thanking Bitmain for putting on this conference. I think it's great to get the whole industry together and really appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody. I've been involved with Marathon since 2018. Before that, I spent 40 years in the technology industry, having done IPOs across different sectors. I've run semiconductor companies, internet companies, was part of the internet boom in the mid-90s, early 2000s, a lot of software companies. And one thing I've learned over the years is every industry goes through cycles. And my perspective is that the Bitcoin industry and the crypto industry as a whole today is where the internet was in 1997. You think about in those days, you could get content off a website, e-commerce was excited about the industry, and it had to go through maturation cycles, but it was still very early, and I think the crypto industry is in a similar place today. It's also important to realize that this industry is maturing. A speaker earlier today talked about the difference between the suits and the t-shirts, and I guess I qualify as a suit because I'm wearing a jacket. But I've also run games companies, so I guess that qualifies for t-shirts too. If you think about how this industry is maturing, just look at the public companies in this space. A few years ago, and I mean like 2 years ago, the total market capitalization of public companies in the Bitcoin mining industry was under $5 billion, under $2 billion. Today it's over $40 billion, and Marathon today represents $8 billion of that market capitalization. It's an amazing industry and how quickly it's growing, but it is maturing. And it's an industry which is attracting because of its players, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So in the Bitcoin mining industry, you essentially have three players. You have miners, hosting partners, or you're vertically integrated and you host yourself, and you have power companies. What's happening in this industry is that where people have traditionally looked at vertically integrating by having their own hosting facility and operating miners, and in some cases offering hosting services as well as self-mining. That was a good model for a number of years. But I would argue today that that model has changed. That today it's not about being vertically integrated, it's about being an expert in your niche in the industry, because what's beginning to happen is the components in the industry are beginning to commoditize. And by that I don't mean that miners are getting less expensive. You can see based on the price in the market today that miners are very expensive. But what is happening is the profitability in the industry is attracting players who have an incentive to make this industry much bigger. Think about what happened in the PC industry, where before it was fully vertically integrated, and then all of a sudden you had Intel with microprocessors, Microsoft with software, people like Dell building servers, etc. That's going to happen in this industry too, with the added difference that the power companies have the single biggest incentive of all of us in this industry. Think about it. What do you pay for power today? What do you think the power company earns on that power today? Don't you think they want to be in the mining business? So miners and power companies are going to be the power couple, no pun intended, of the future. Why? The power companies have the incentive, the large-scale enterprise miners have the capability, the knowledge, and the capital to deploy to do that. So let's look at what's been happening in the industry. I gave part one of this presentation in July at the Bitmain conference in Miami. And if you think about what's going on in the industry today, you're starting to see power companies partner with miners. And here are a handful of these early stage companies. But nobody is really talking actively about the 300 plus gigawatts of power that AEP, NextEra, Duke, Southern Power, TVA, Exelon, and this is just the United States, by the way, have available to use for Bitcoin mining. And their cost of energy is very low. And why is that? Well, for one thing, there's huge amounts of renewable energy coming online all over the world. As one of the previous speakers mentioned, energy demand forecasts are declining. So how do you incentivize energy companies to build more power capacity? Well, they're building a lot of renewable energy, and they need a customer for that energy. So they're looking to Bitcoin miners to be that baseload customer of choice. So why do they want to talk to Bitcoin miners? Well, you have to look at the incentives. Charlie Munger, who was Warren Buffett's partner for many years, always said, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. And the single biggest incentive is cost of power and the profits that the power companies are giving up by not being in the mining business. The supply of renewable energy in North America is growing dramatically. By 2050, over 90% of the energy produced in the United States will be renewable. The one biggest challenge with renewable energy is load balancing. And if you know anything about how power grids work, they are not power distribution networks. They are meant to be power balancing networks. The grid in North America was designed to balance load, not to distribute load. You can only send electricity 500 miles. So you need to consume it near the point of generation. The problem is a lot of power generators in the US don't have customers, so they don't have an incentive to build renewable energy. So what do? Well, as a renewable energy company, you find a Bitcoin miner of scale. You partner with them and you deploy 500 gigawatts of renewable energy with Bitcoin miners, and then you connect to the grid and sell your excess energy at a higher price. Why? Well, power generation exceeds consumption. In the US, for the past 20 years, we have generated and consumed 4 terawatt hours of energy. It hasn't gone up, it's actually gone down. So how do you incentivize people to build more power? Well, you have to look at things like renewable energy incentives, but with renewable energy, you also have to look at something called curtailment. In California, if you look at this chart, these are the number of hours or megawatt hours of energy that are curtailed, meaning the grid didn't want the energy. They said, I'm not going to take this energy from you. So this is excess energy. This excess energy goes to waste. Who's a better customer for this? Who's a better baseload consumer than a Bitcoin miner? Makes all the sense in the world. So Bitcoin miners are the consumer of last resort. If you look at the energy that was curtailed in 2021 alone, 1,400 gigawatt hours were curtailed, wasted from wind and solar alone. If you were to use S19 Pros based on the global hash rate of August of this year, that 1,400 gigawatt hours would be a little over 16,000 BTC, which would be over $1 billion in lost revenue. Think about it. This is electricity that had no customer. Even if you only ran the S19s when you were curtailing the energy, which isn't 24 hours a day, it's only a partial part of the day, you would make a huge profit. So power companies can either partner with large-scale miners and sell them electricity at 3 cents a kilowatt hour, or they can take and earn that money instead and get a much better return on their assets than they get on their plant, property, and equipment assets. And if you think about the one aspect of the value chain here between power, hosting, and miners, the part of the value chain that has the lowest ROI long-term in this equation is the hosting provider. And those of you who are familiar with the Marathon model know that we are focused today on being the most agile miner of enterprise scale there is. So therefore, we are not investing in hosting assets. We partner. And we partner with whoever wants to partner with us. But we don't believe it makes sense for us to invest a penny of our capital expenditure in hosting resources. And instead, invest all that money in miners. So well-capitalized and highly incentivized energy companies are coming after this space very, very quickly. Over the next 12 months, you're going to see a number of announcements from some of the largest energy companies announcing initiatives to begin their own self-mining operations. You're also going to see them partnering with large enterprise scale miners. So to quote Game of Thrones, power is coming just like winter is coming. The network hash rate is going to explode next year. If you believe in the BitOODA forecasts, then you'd know that the Bitcoin global hash rate will nearly double from the end of this year to the end of next year. We'll end this year around 198 exahash. We'll end next year at closer to 400 exahash. If you then look at 2023 and 2024, when you have a halving and the reward rate goes down, your cost to mine a Bitcoin will increase by a factor of 8 to 10 times between now and the halving. Are you set up to deal with that? If you're paying 6 cents a kilowatt hour today, are you prepared for what the industry is going to look like? Provided Bitcoin continues to grow, that's fine. But if your cost to mine a Bitcoin is all of a sudden $75,000 or $80,000, and Bitcoin's only at $100,000, what does that mean for your business? Can you afford to invest in miners? Can you afford to pay off those miners? So the competition for miners, switchgears, and transformers today is exploding. Look at the lead times. Marathon was very early. We ordered a lot of machines in 2020. We ordered a lot of switchgear, transformers, and containers early this year. So we're prepared. And now we're even chartering jets to fly our miners from Asia to the United States. We can do that as an enterprise scale miner. Smaller miners can't. And this is where the industry is going to get squeezed. So mining rewards will go down over time as the global hash rate goes up and the reward rate goes down. And the last one standing are going to be the largest scale miners partnered with the power companies. So miners, be agile, but get as big as you can quickly, because power is coming and this industry is maturing rapidly, and the days of easy money are numbered. Thank you.